Welcome to the Eagle Eye Podcast, the #1 show to bring you all things Club America and English.
Oh, what a strike! Club America!
Your hosts for today are Ivan Pineda, Cristian Rosendo, Alexis Juarez, and everyone's favorite cowboy, Dylan Jimenez. Goal! Now let's hit the field and start the show.
America!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a very special edition of the Eagle Eye Podcast. We are in celebration mode as we are here to talk about Club America and its 105-year anniversary. And to do so, we've set up a panel of Americanistas from the Liga MX English community to dive in and talk about the greatest and biggest club in Mexican soccer. So, joining me today, as always, one of my co-hosts is none other than AJ himself. AJ, how are you?
Doing good, and what a great start to my week to just be here with a bunch of amazing people in the Liga MX English community. So I'm feeling really good.
Definitely. It's practically the Met Gala of Americanismo. Let's put it that way, all right? And let me just read off our panel here. We have none other than Fidel Martinez himself coming from LA Times, and we have Foot Cult's very own owner, Miguel, aka Miggy Ramos, and of course, it is FootMex Nation's own Amelia Lopez. Amy, how are all of you doing tonight?
Good. I went first. Okay, everybody else can answer.
I'm doing pretty good. Just busy with work, and I hope you guys aren't offended, but I have the Dodgers game on silent.
I told you. I said it. I said that's why he was running late.
No, honestly, that wasn't why I was running late. I was running late because, like I said earlier, I'm Mexican, so you have to. I was within the margin of error. It's not even 7:05.
That's fair.
So I was early, really, by Mexican standards. So.
I broke tradition. I was like 15 minutes early. I was like the first one here.
Yeah.
Ivan and I were just. He was actually very surprised. He's like, somebody's gonna show up early, and I was what? So
you set up the snacks and everything.
I did.
I was here 2 hours early, like if it were a flight, but nobody was here, so then I had to leave and come back.
Yeah, I told you to come back in time. No, well, look, I'm excited. We're gonna have Christian hop on just a little bit. He's running a little late. He's gonna be also joining us. But look, we're here to celebrate 105 years of glory, passion, and history that America has accumulated. And just to start off, I just want to go around the room, and I want to ask every single one of you what it is about this team that made you an Americanista. So I'll start off with AJ, seeing as how you're the newest addition to all of this.
It just started in 2012, really, when my dad just one day just gave me a bunch of America stuff. You know, I feel like it's a tradition where if you grow up in a family, it always feels like you're getting the Americanista side from your parents, really, whether it be the father or the mother. So one day just kept buying me a bunch of America stuff, whether it be like training tops, shirts. And then what really stood out to me was when he bought me a Christian Chucho Benitez jersey, and I'm like, I really like this jersey. The only time I got to see him play, unfortunately, was in that final against Cruz Azul in 2013. And just seeing that the penalty that he scored for America, it really just got me going crazy. And at that point, I was just like, yeah, I like this guy. Ain't no Messi or Ronaldo that got me into soccer. It was just one player himself that got me into being an America fan. But then just from there on out, the rest is history, really. I just get digging deep into America's history. My dad would just ask me questions a lot to like, if you knew any of this player, I was like, I know that. He's like, how do you know all this stuff? And like, and I've been more of an America fan than you, and you know more than me. I would tell him, you could thank FIFA 13 for that, because that's how it got me more into soccer in itself. But yeah, no, just from there on out, just watching every single America game that I possibly can, just look into the history of like players that they come from, the history of the club itself. And I'm just really happy to just be an America fan and just getting to watch the games with my mother and father every single time they play.
Definitely. Okay, that's a really good answer right there. Fidel, what really made you an Americanista?
Man, I feel so bad because mine is literally just 2 words. My dad. No, I mean I grew up in the. My dad is Mexican, and he loves sports, and there is no bigger love that he has than Club America. I mean, he basically, he's the reason why I love sports, straight up, because it is one of the few love languages my dad has, to be able to communicate with that. And, and the fact that the club, I came to love the club in the 90s. Like, basically that was my coming of age, early 90s, my coming of age for sports. And, I for the longest time, I sort of saw America very much the same way in which I see the Dallas Cowboys, these teams that signify the pain and hurt of having hopes and expectations only to be disappointed, right? And thankfully, America finally ended their title drought in the early 2000s, but that was sort of how I became a fan, just my dad. Yeah.
All right, I like it. Well, we have Chris Rivera saying that for AJ, Chucho Lopez is the symbol of the Americanismo.
My boy. My boy.
I think that's very much AJ stuff. But Mickey, what was it about this club? What is it about this club that made you an Americanismo?
For me, it's similar to what Fidel said. Just my dad, at a very young age. That's all we knew. Watching America, going to watch America games back when I lived in Mexico. It was a lot easier to travel down there to go see them and stuff. But really, like, the moment, like, I grew up watching them like in the 90s too. But like, the moment that for me changed, like, the way I viewed the team was the 2002 final against Necaxa. I was very fortunate to be there at the stadium with my dad at the time. And ever since that moment, like, the love that I had just became an obsession, and I've been obsessed with the club ever since. And yeah, that's pretty much like my story. Like, it's really like the only real connection that me and my father really shared. So even like, we can go months not speaking to each other, but when it comes to we're in a final where America wins the title, I know he's gonna call or I'm gonna call, and I just really learned to embrace that. And it is what it is. It's something that, like, you can't really be taught. It's something that you're pretty much born with, I feel, and that's what really what the club means to me. It means everything. It's everything to me, really.
Nice. I love it. Amy, what is it about this club? What made you be part of the Americanismo?
My Mexican dad, like, full, like, just like everybody else. My Mexican dad, but more particularly, I mean, if we're gonna have like players or anything, or actually when I was little, there's a town here nearby us, because I live in Hawthorne. I've always lived here most of my life, called Lenox, and it's essentially like Little Mexico around here in the South Bay area. And I played in the leagues over there. I played in the girls' league, and my first like real like winning team was the Águilas. So we actually had like knockoff America jerseys and stuff, and that was my team for like a good like 3 years. But we were actually like really good. And around that time, I think Cabañas was playing and Cuauhtémoc Blanco was playing and stuff like that. So obviously, as much as Cuauhtémoc Blanco is like a national team icon, he was it for America fans too. And so that's really where it started, right? And that like familiarity with the brand, and then just winning and just understanding that pride with being an America fan. And even growing up, that, if you will, quote unquote, like hatred for Chivas, right? So you had that like rivalry that happened in that sense too. And you're like, this team is important and this team is not that important, right? But it just kind of grew from there. And then you actually start paying attention to the team, and you start seeing players that are really good and they're prospering, right? Benitez was amazing. Raul came from America, and you're just growing that passion. But for me, the game that really solidified it for me was May 26, 2013. Because one, that's my birthday. 2, I was 7 months pregnant with Jack, and it's the game itself, right? Just Moises Munoz, just header coming from behind, just everything, just a perfect moment. And I watched that with my dad in his, in my parents' bedroom and stuff. And he just kept saying like, oh, imagine if the goalie scores right now. And he was just so elated, and he was so happy. And, I was pregnant, and it kind of, in a very cheesy way, turned into that generational thing where I was like, this team matters, and this is what it does to us, and that's that pride that it fills it. And I think in a selfish way, it's one of the winningest teams that I root for, we're consistently winning. It gives us happiness in that sense. And so, yeah, that it really, it does. It fills me with pride to go for this team. And even with the women now, with the Liga MX Femenil, with Dani Espinosa and Jen Munoz has played there, and all these other players that have played And when they won their first title, you just go, there's this pride and within the fans and everybody in the culture that just builds, and it's super awesome to be a part of.
It is. And I think we've kind of gotten something similar, all of us across the board in tonight's panel. I don't know if Christian was here, the story would align in the same way. And that is the fact that this has been a generational passing from all of us, right? Regardless of what's been going on, it's been something that has been passed down to us, and it just goes to show, right, that this is something that hopefully one day we'll be able to pass along to the next generation. But the great thing about it is that no matter what generation you're talking to, there's always been that sense of America is and will continue to be el más grande, right? Even though, Fidel, you talked about the 90s not being the best year for America, let's be honest.
Well, they were that's the thing. That was like such a good team, right? It was like, when I talk about that period, it's not like they were like stinking up the joint. I mean, you had Galusha and Bijik, and they were like such an electrifying duo. I mean, it was I remember being young and watching them play, and I was like, holy crap, these players are so good, and this is my team, so. But yeah, I mean, they didn't win for a long time, and it was, despite them not winning, it's not like it mattered to me at that point,
No, I agree. It wasn't like we were, relegated or anything like that. It really truly was the fact that it's just, a lot of other things that came into consideration. But 90s, not the biggest year, biggest decade for America, but still, still known as one of the biggest teams in Mexico, or the biggest team. Could make the argument right there. This is what I'm trying to allude to, is that this is always going to be the biggest club because of the passion, because of the history that has kind of been embedded since way at the beginnings. I joked around it earlier, right, when I said AJ is going to dive into the 1920s for us, but it culminates from somewhere, and it builds up to this momentum. I love the fact that you've all talked about a moment of kind of that cemented that Americanismo more inside you, right? AJ, you spoke about Chucho Benitez and that final. Amy, same, speaking about that epic final, and I think that final will forever be ingrained in every Americanismo. And it's always hard for me to ask someone like, all right, pick for me your best moment without picking that final, because everyone just leans towards that final, and I'm like, all right, let's just focus on another one, because it's always going to be up there, right? It's like,
Yeah,
we probably won't see another final like that for another 20, 30 years. I don't think we'll have that kind of epic drama in that sense where, but Miggy, I love the fact that you talked about and I know it's not the first time you come on the podcast and talk about it too, but that 2002 final against Necaxa, right? Another really epic one, if I may add, right?
Yeah,
like that was intense. Okay, that was golden goal era. Like, it was really truly an epic final in all that sense, right? It was that backlash between the fact that it was like, oh, it's America Necaxa, so at the time we owned Necaxa, so everyone just thought it was gonna be an easy dub, but it wasn't. That wasn't the case.
I remember.
Go ahead.
I remember we were planning on going to the final, like all as soon as we qualified to the final, like me and my dad started planning or whatever, and he was already getting the tickets, and we're planning how to get there and everything. And then the first leg happens, and I'm like, man, I don't even want to go anymore, honestly. Like, and my dad was like, no, like you don't understand, like it's not over, like you're gonna wait till you see the Azteca full and how much it's gonna have an impact of the game and everything. Like, you can't lose your hope and nothing. And there we were, halftime still 0-0, and we were there at the restaurant, and I was like, man, like I don't know, I don't see how it's gonna happen. And then I remember, like, I'm never gonna forget some guy he was from Puebla, like he just drove to Mexico. He was like, no, like right now once the first one comes in, like the first goal goes in, it's like they're all gonna come in or whatever. And like it's something that I'm just never gonna forget. It was such an epic moment, man. It's incredible.
I think with that,
That's why I really. Oh no, go ahead.
No, just because I think it's those things. I feel like America, for us, maybe like as Mexico fans too, it's just one of those teams that doesn't consistently disappoint. Like and we have reasonable high expectations for the team because Ivan's complaining every 5 minutes about the team and they're sitting in first place. It's the kind of thing that enjoying America does, but it's because I feel like time and time again you get these moments like, watch, this is gonna happen, right? You have somebody, or even internally, you're like, watch, this is gonna, and it actually happens, and then they end up winning. Like I was actually having a discussion today with somebody that was like, America could be playing like their absolute worst, and somehow they're still going to qualify for Champions League, you know. And then it's like, it's just like it's one of the few teams in my life as an Arsenal fan where it's like, even when they disappoint, they're still okay. They're still a pretty good top team with talented players in there on their roster too.
Well, and they've always been thrilling. I mean, I think like Miguel, for me that to me is the more epic final because it ended the drought. It ended a decades-long drought. I think the last title was 88, 89?
89, I think 89.
And I mean, we're talking about more than 10 years, right? And so it was just sort of like a moment. Like for me personally, I remember very specifically where I was. We were in the living room. My friend Roger, one of my best friend growing up, was watching with me and my dad and my family. And then the first goal comes in. And I was like, oh my God, this might actually happen. And then the second goal goes in and like my dad starts to show emotion, which if you've grown up with a Mexican dad, that is like something that's clearly up, you know? And then finally the golden goal comes and he just like bursts out yelling, crying, laughing. I've never seen them this excited about anything, whether it was me graduating from college or whether it was, you know, him getting grandchildren. And it was like, holy crap, there's a side to my dad that I never knew existed. And I am privy to that. Not only am I privy to this, but I am a part of it, you know? So I just remember like, he was so excited. He didn't want to stay at the house so I grew up in Hidalgo. So we crossed the border into Reynosa just to go to La Plaza where all the fucking Americanistas were circling La Plaza with the flags. And like, I remember where we ate, you know, I remember exactly what I got, like the food, you know? So like these things are memories that stem from this club, you know? It's a club that is, you know, it's a multi-million dollar, you know,
I'll throw a billion in there.
Franchise, you know, but yes, it is like a capitalistic machine, but it also has meaning to a lot of people, you know, and especially for people who live in the United States. I mean, it is a connection to mankind, you know. I mean, like you see that everywhere. I mean, the fact that Americanistas are literally across the country, you know, they weren't born there. They moved there for a reason, you know. So I don't know. To me, it really is like, not to sound hyperbolic or anything, but it really is like kind of one of the more important things about my Mexicanness, you know, this stupid club, you know. And I call it stupid because it's a one-way street. It feels like
it is very much one way, right? The saying goes, either you hate us or you love us, and mostly it's usually the former.
Yeah.
But I think that's the interesting part, at least kind of what Fidel's saying, being based in the US, because you know, you don't know all those like weird connotations. At least I didn't. I don't think I actually understood the connotations that come with being an America fan until maybe like 10, 15 years ago. And that's like barely scratching the surface. And then maybe Twitter came around and then I understood, you know, because there are a lot of, you know, as AJ is going to tell us about the 1920s, right? There's so many different layers. I mean, there's layers to all the clubs, right? And everything. Probably, you know, Chivas probably as the inverse example just because of the rivalry. But there is something very interesting about that connection to America and just like its socio-political, you know, kind of realm when it comes to, you know, Mexican culture and everything too.
Yeah. Es el equipo del gobierno, as they say. You know.
And the refs,
the refs, the Televisa money, right? Which we don't have any.
Oh, I remember hearing that so much. Like,
I mean, it's not for naught, though. You know. Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely.
It's not for naught. Like, we got to love our club and also expose its, you know, its little.
No, yeah, of course.
Dirt
and I think
under the crevices.
It goes to show exactly what Chris was saying, right? We're the most spoiled fan base, and our expectations only get higher as the years go by.
Ivan's like, we're top of the table.
Hey, this is the
I've ever
truth.
seen the team.
This is the truth, and I'll tell you why. because for me, what same as you guys, generational passing of the baton in regards to Americanismo, but what really cemented this club for me was having to watch them post Cuauhtémoc Blanco era, where we were bottom of the league, where we were losing weekend after weekend, where we had players come out and say we have a defense made out of plastic, and what did he say? Capitán
Captain,
de what? I can't
chocolate
Yeah,
captain or something
chocolate
like
captain, something like that.
Yeah.
I that was what cemented me. The fact that I was able to, because it was like, why am I sitting here every weekend and watching them lose? Like, and it was because I have grown the affection, and not a lot of people, and some of you may be listening to this. A lot of you left during that time, all right? Some of you left. Now I'm saying not all of you, right? But for some people did. And as soon as we started coming back in winning ways, then all of a sudden I saw a lot more Americanismo coming out the closet. But I will say this: having those struggling times, having those times of difficulty, that is what makes me be the Americanista that I am today, and hence why I have such big expectations, because I've seen what we look like at the bottom, and I know that the ceiling can only go higher than that. So that's why I'm always a little bit like, I know we can do better, because I've seen the worst of it, and now that we're doing much better than I ever imagined we were going to do when I was a kid watching those games week in and week out with my dad, that it's kind of like, okay, let's take it up a notch. Let's take it up even more. So let's go one more time. And for me, that's what cemented it all, because, I think the Americanista is a lot more different than any other sports fan out there, right? Because the way I see it, I feel like a lot of us back up our players in the sense that we feel like we could take on the world, rightfully so, right? I say put America in the real Champions League. I feel like we could do something, right? And some people will be like, you're crazy. That's unrealistic expectations.
I mean, we're not sheriffs, so calm down.
Some would argue we are.
But because it goes to this, look, Chris said, to me, America is the biggest club in the world. No Ronaldo, no Benz, Bale, Neymar, Suarez, none of them, Messi, have anything against my Cuauhtémoc Blanco, my Piojo Lopez, and Kleber. And I feel like that's the same mentality I have. Like, I will say, if you tell me to name my best starting 11 of any player I've ever seen in the world, Cuauhtémoc Blanco makes it for sure. And like, I feel like he can go up toe-to-toe with anyone, right? I mean, Cuauhtémoc Blanco go toe-to-toe with anyone.
But I think it speaks to the level of deepness to this fandom that it took us about 20 minutes to mention the greatest Americanista and greatest L3 player that ever lived. It's 20 minutes. It really does speak to the richness of this club, right? And I mean, I think for me, Cuauhtémoc, I think he is like the embodiment of the Americanista, right? It's like the brash, like in your face loudness of it too, right? And like his narrative too, like the fact that he came from Tepito to play at the biggest club is like, I mean, it's so easy to buy into that, right? So yeah, and I do think that Cuauhtémoc really, had he left earlier, he could have really done great things. And I mean, he was sort of a man before his time, so to speak.
I believe so. I believe
For
so.
sure. Even his farewell game, it's like I wrote about it. I wrote about it when I was like in college, I believe, and it's a poorly written thing, but I still go back to it sometimes because it's like that is what Cuauhtémoc Blanco was. Like he was like almost magic in a sense. And this is a game that he plays for like I don't know how many minutes he ended up playing. I think he played the whole first half.
No, 30 almost minutes.
Like
almost
20
Like 30 minutes.
20 something.
30 minutes and almost scores a golazo. Like I was so mad when that ball didn't go in because I'm like, that is Cuauhtémoc. Like that is if you ever need to see anything from his beginning and from his ending, like that is it. That is just who he is as a player and his personality, just like you said, like his essence. Like it was a little problematic, there's some misogyny in there.
It's still
there's
very
some misogyny in there in the past if you look at it in retrospect. but it was, it was like there was this essence, there was this pride that he filled you with because of who he was. And that wasn't just America, like Fidel was saying, or so many of us say, even with Mexico, and even when he went and he headed over to Chicago, was still about Mexico, was still about his love for his country and everything. And to know that that's the player that is part of your club, it just makes you like that much more proud of everything.
Well, and the fact, it's funny you mentioned the Chicago Fire because, so as some of you might know, I'm an LAFC fan, and that's solely because of Carlos Vela, But before then, like the one time that I dabbled in the MLS briefly was the Chicago Fire because of Cuauhtemoc, I mean, like, sure. Yeah, and I have family lived in Chicago, so like, sure, why not, But I mean, and just speaking to, like, I think he is the emblematic figure because every Americanista has sort of tried to become or occupy that role, I mean, and you see it especially with the kids that are leaving or that have left, right? Raul, Jimenez, and Linus. I mean, they're basically kind of like, versions of Cuauhtemoc that are not going to be Cuauhtemoc, I mean, hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully we'll, like, Linus might be the second coming of Cuauhtemoc, but you know what I'm saying? It's sort of something that. Not only that, but he also displayed Mexican soccer greatness at the World Cup. I mean, he gave us a Guatemala at the 98 World Cup, and that amazing goal that he just, scored with his left foot as like just diving. I don't know, like I still don't understand the physics of how that happened. Like, how did he end up in that position, lying down in the middle of the air with his leg extended? Like it's just gravity defying. So. Yeah.
He gave us the 6 foot, the 6 feet walking back goal against France. Like everything about him was like both a character, but it's completely authentic. It was amazing to see.
The goal in Confederaciones against Brazil,
right?
Well, that one,
exactly. And I think exactly what Chris said, right? And one of the most important goals in Mexico history is also scored by Cuauhtemoc Blanco. So. It's true. Like, and I will make the argument that there's only those type of players only come one in a generational lifetime, right? Because before Cuauhtemoc, the argument is probably Reynoso, right?
I would say Hugo Sanchez, to be honest. I mean, going back in terms at the national level.
No. I meant in America.
Oh, in American. Okay, yeah. No, absolutely.
In America. I want to say that it was Reynoso. I mean, obviously you had greats, after Reynoso, you had Tena, right? Capitan Furia himself. But I think no one alluded to the heights the way that Reynoso did. And then comes in Cuauhtemoc Blanco. And I think the argument can be made, but I think Cuauhtemoc Blanco is still the ultimate figure of the Americanismo. Which is, it says a lot about him, like exactly what you were saying, because he's not the most decorated player with us. He's not. Let's be honest. He didn't win a lot. He had a lot of his issues too off the pitch, and there was times where we sent him to Veracruz or Necaxa, but he came back always strong, and he had something that very few people have for this club, and that is genuine love for the jersey. Miggy, have you seen anyone else come after Cuauhtemoc have the same love for the jersey?
Personally, I would say no, because I feel like post Blanco, we've had like, I guess like a lot of, I don't know if I'm gonna word it correctly, but we've had like icons, but I feel like Blanco was the last idol we ever had. And I feel like it's something that we currently are lacking. I feel like we don't have, like, we have Ochoa, and I'm always going to love Ochoa for everything he did. But I just feel like he's not at that level of an idol, at least to me personally, as Blanco was. Because, I don't know, like, it was just, he was a difference maker, and Ochoa is a difference maker as well, but it's not at the same like level. I don't know how to explain that, but yeah, I feel like he's the last idol we had. I honestly do believe that.
Does anyone else concur or object?
Well, I mean, I think that's sort of, I don't think we're going to in a while, because I mean, quite frankly, now it's all of our best players tend to go to Europe. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
before, like, Cuauhtemoc was, I think, a reason why he was such a unique case was because the bulk of his professional career was spent in Mexico, you know, and he sort of built that repertoire there, and he got no worldwide because of the World Cup. But now you have, you know, the moment a kid is like, you know, decent, like, I mean, just who are the last couple of players that left America for Europe? You know, like I'm thinking about Lainez. Who else? I'm thinking
Edson
about
Alvarez,
Edson, yeah.
Agustin Marchesín, just for players. He made the move to
I mean,
Porto.
Reyes left for quick.
Diego
minute.
Reyes to Porto as well.
Yeah, so you're seeing, and next to this, like, basically, it's, I don't want to say that this has become like the training ground for future great players, because that's very disrespectful to the history of the club. But there is an element of that, especially now that soccer has become so globalized. You know, I mean, and it's not very specific to the States. I mean, you're seeing that in other countries, like in Korea or in African countries, in which players are basically moving to the top leagues. You know, and that is, I think, my theory as to why, you know, we're never really going to have another Blanco. I mean, not to bring him up. Actually, I kind of am bringing him up just as a little bit of a troll, but a perfect example of another Americanista who is going to leave his club is Ricardo Pepi. You know, Pepi his family is a diehard America club. You know, and he's not going to stay in Dallas very long. You know, and that's because of the nature of the game. You know, like, which is it creates a scenario in which, like, it's not necessarily good for the club to be losing your homegrown talent, but it's good for the national team, you know?
Yeah.
So that there's sort of the relationship that where I see it, where we're at now.
Yeah.
And
I just
go, Mickey, go.
ahead. I just also going or referring to what Fidel said. I feel like players, like, they come in and they win a title and they're just like, okay, well, I already did my part here. Like, it's time to look at other challenges or whatever. Like, nobody really wants to create a legacy for the club anymore. And I think that also has a lot to do with it. Like, it's just like, oh, one and done, instead of, like, you know, and, like, for example, a team like Tigres, that's something that Tigres has been able to do, is retain their talent throughout the years. And that's why they've been so successful in this past decade, because compared to, like, America, it's just like, oh, we win one and the offer comes. I don't know if it's because we're a bigger market team or because we need the money. I don't know what it is.
It's both.
But
It's both.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely agree with Fidel on that.
I mean, it's the reality of it, right? And I think it's the nature of the world that we live in today, and it's our fault too, as because you know we press these kids to go and challenge themselves in Europe. But I guess I get the reason why Fidel mentioned it, right? There's that national team expectation as well, but you know, like you mentioned, there's very few players now in day where I don't think you ask. Well, let me rephrase this. I think there's very few kids out there in this world that if you tell them you have either the option to play for America or go play for Barcelona, who are you gonna pick? I promise you 9.5 times out of 10, they're gonna want to go take their chances to Europe, right?
Yeah.
There's little to no one left that's saying I will play for America for the entire rest of my career because I want to build a legacy, because this is where I want to be, and that's just the football world we live in nowadays, right? It's the reality of it. But I would love to see someone just go from the beginnings to the ends all at America, because I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
But I think it's also sometimes it's not the player's fault. I mean, Edson and Lainez had to leave for financial reasons. Like, I mean, granted, they were also good enough to head over to Europe, but I mean, we're definitely not.
I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. I know the club.
Like,
yeah,
it's part. After all, soccer is a business, so there's that component about it too. So if there's theoretically a way for a player to stay and maintain that, you know, that ability to grow within the system as much as possible, obviously that'd be amazing. But I think it's like Fidel says, I think it was also a product of the times. I think that, you know, someone like Cuauhtemoc, maybe in hindsight, if we had another Cuauhtemoc emerging now, we would also be making the case that, hey, we want to show that America exports a ton of players, and there's our bragging rights to be able to export tons of talented, you know, prospective national team stars to Europe. So it's a double-edged sword, right? You're going to want to come off and be a championship team, but you also want to have that platform on, when it comes to the national team. And I think it's kind of forming in that sense right now too. Henry Martins did fantastic in the Olympics, right? Cordova is also doing well with the national team. So I think it depends on how you look at it, but for the time being anyway, it's still the winningest team. So they have that to kind of cushion themselves and, support themselves kind of going into that MLS conversation, unless we turn to LA Galaxy that still also has those bragging rights, but now has had a drought for a very significant amount of time. I don't think that happens anytime soon. But
wait, you mean to tell me that MLS didn't start like 3 years ago?
Sorry, Elias. No, it most definitely did not. But I think right now, as you look into the future of America, it goes into, in your defense, Ivan, it goes into, all right, we stay the top of the team at the regular season, and that's fine and dandy. But what comes when, push comes to shove and we're in those Liguilla games, which is, I think, a credible reason why people are worried about Solari. But for the most part, for right now, you're still in a good place as a strong team.
I like Solari, by the way.
I don't mind him either.
No, well, here's what I'm going to say. Look, I think it's great that we're finally getting a coach who spent time in Europe, but not at the waning, but it's not coming at the waning years of his career. I mean, I would remember, what's his face? Ben Hacker, that guy was basically, he came he had coached some national team, and I was like, I guess I'll take this job in Mexico because
and Real Madrid.
No, last thing he came before going to America was Saudi Arabia. And from there he's like, sure, I'll give it a try in Mexico.
Yeah, and now we have a kid. I'm sorry, a kid. He is probably younger than me. He was like, kid. How old is somebody? I don't even want to know.
AJ will get that number for you.
Yeah, I'll get it.
Okay, he's old.
45.
He's an old.
I was gonna say he's like 40.
45.
Yeah.
45. Yeah.
But so it's good to finally be able to not be someone's retirement plan, rather be someone's launching pad on the coaching front, And I remember the first and only time I was in this podcast, I told you guys that I kind of like Solari, and he's not gonna win pretty games, but he's gonna win games, And I so far so good. I do think that we are a spoiled bunch. Yeah, so
we are like Chris said earlier in the chat. We are the most spoiled fan base there is out there, and that's fine. I like it like that. Let's keep it that way. But talking about managers, we've had a lot of great managers come, and some players that become coach managers as well. For example, let's not forget that Carlos Reynoso himself handed Chivas the L of the lifetime in a final against them. So as coaching America, and talking about managers, AJ. Can you give us just a quick trivia here? Who is the first ever English manager to coach for Las Águilas del América? And no, do not say Craig Harrington.
No, it's actually Percy Clifford. He managed the team in 2 occasions, from 1926 to 1927 and from 1927 to 1928. And just remember looking at the history of America match, I was just like, we had an Englishman who also played in Mexico at the time. That was called British Club before he became defunct. And then at that point, he spent most of his time in Mexico and then started coaching America. Unfortunately, this is the time after he didn't really win any titles. This is during the early 1920s where we were finally getting into the league, where it was starting to become creative. We will call it the Primera Fuerza. We were a part of it. So he came during those times. It's just interesting to see how someone like Clifford just made his way to Mexico, and they had a club. He's like, I'm gonna coach this team and see what it's all about. And that's one of the reasons for America. We just get a bunch of players from just all around the Americas, from around the entire world. To see someone like him just get to manage a club like America, which were really big at the time, just winning titles left and right in the league, and such as well. They had to be accepted for the league. They were already in another league at first, and for them to get accepted, play 3 games. 1-2, drew 1. They're like, okay, you're in the league now. It's accepted.
There you go. Qualification. And you guys thought I was joking when AJ was going to dive deep into the 1920s.
I have a lot. It's just really interesting just seeing this team. We're just winning titles back to back, and as well, we were the first Mexican club to ever travel outside the country, which was a friendly in Guatemala, I think it was,
Yep.
when we
Via
traveled.
train.
Yeah, I remember those things. That's why, like, every time when America goes to Guatemala, we call it La Gran Aventura. These just are going right back to where this club first made its way over to another country. So it's just interesting, and yeah, no, just to see how their upcomings began just in the 1916s and the 20s. It's fun as well. It's crazy as well how one of the coaches, player managers for America, Rafael Garcia Gutierrez, nicknamed Record. One day he was with his father. They just looked at some blue shorts and a yellow shirt, and then they just come to the greens. Yeah, this is gonna be the colors of the team, and they're just like, so be it.
Look
No,
at
you-
that. Just two guys randomly say, you know what, that looks like a good matching style. Let's go with that. You just
Simple,
last minute
simple,
decisions.
simple little patch as well. And they're just like perfect. It's one
And
color.
105 years later, we have arguably the greatest. Like no one's jerseys have been as great as America. Like straight up, you know, like it's not even an argument, you know. I mean,
Everybody
Even
gets
with all the
those templates.
sponsorships, we still
Yeah, I know.
managed to make it look real good. I had hesitations about the Home Depot one, but it's still like after a while I got over it. Like
Yeah,
that,
as soon as they took
We-
the orange off, I think it worked.
We weren't like your Juárez de Chiapas or Veracruz, so they had like a bunch of sponsors everywhere. I'm just like, I would not even want to buy those jerseys because of that. I only remember them as well because of FIFA at that time, just like how many sponsors they need on that jersey. But
it turns out a lot.
The shorts.
Turns out it wasn't enough for Juárez.
By the way, speaking of these other clubs, man, and no disrespect to fans of this team, which I don't imagine is that many people within our circle, you know. But I was looking at that 2002 tournament, and do you guys know who the top finishing club that during the regular season was?
no. What is
La
it?
Piedad.
Yeah.
La Piedad. Look
Right?
at
We talk
that.
about a deep cut. Deep cut. They were number one. They were the top seed in La Liguilla, and they played against America, and America won, you know, overall 6-2. You know, but yeah, it's
Didn't they have a young Kikin Fonseca?
I
he
think
played
so,
for
yeah.
Piedad, yeah.
But right, like talk about a deep cut back in the
Yeah.
day when you had you know, promotion relegation, you know, the good old days.
and this
Good
team
old
is
days.
still playing to this very day in the
Yeah.
Segunda División de Mexico, even though when we say Segunda División, that's probably your third division or something, because that's the thing that always confuses you with this kind of leagues. When they name something Segunda, I'm thinking, oh, I assume it's second. They're like, no, it's another league that's like below that as well. I'm like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Complicated in that sense, but I'm glad you guys make that deep cut reference, because I think that, you know, it's not a lot of people hear that on your day-to-day podcast. So I'm glad you guys made it.
I think
Look.
we're just showing our age, dude.
Yeah.
No, I love it because, you know,
And I'm just showing that I can use Wikipedia.
no, I love it because I feel like America right now at the moment is only remembered from like the 2012 to now era, right? There isn't much talk about what happened, like those great times that I was mentioning about when America had Ruben Romano at the helm, and I was like, this guy's more worried about his smoke break than his tactics.
Now that's aging yourself right there.
Hey, don't call me out like that. I thought this team existed in 2013, so don't be calling me out like that, Ivan. Come on.
AJ, you're like 6, man. Like you got your whole
right.
life ahead of you.
No, but I like it because there is a lot of much more younger Americanistas that I see on the timeline, and I'm like, if I was to throw you a name from like the 1990s, 1980s, like no one's gonna be like, oh yeah, them, you know, and even us. I mean, we didn't get to live the 1980s era, which is, I think, by far the biggest time for America, right? The 80s were
golden age.
the golden age, the most successful. What is if I go in and ask one of you guys, you know, what do you guys know, or if anything, about the 1980s? Just something that sticks out. I'll go to Miggy first because I feel like this is gonna be cake for him. 1980s,
Wait, can you repeat
anything?
the question? 1980s? Well, I mean, I wasn't
Yeah, just
alive,
anything. What
but
pops to your head?
Yes.
the one thing that pops to my head is obviously the final against Chivas, because that's like one of the most epic things about being an Americanista is that we beat them in the only final that we played them. So I wish I was alive for it, but my dad had like the actual like videotape of that, like he actually like recorded it on
Betamax.
The VCR. He didn't have anything like no
Did it
videos
over,
of
like,
me
the
growing
wedding
up or
tape.
nothing. Yeah, exactly. Like no videos of me growing up, but he had all those America videos. So yeah, I remember rewatching it with him and everything, and man, that was very epic. That's the one thing that I wish I would have been alive for that for sure.
No, yeah. I mean, of course, right? I mean, I love it. I love the fact that you said that. I mean, does anyone else have anything else but the Chivas?
Yeah, I feel like this is a very huge missed opportunity, Miguel, to talk about that jersey, man, that design, like the blue triangle, the one that you're wearing right now. That's sort of to me what.
Well, I'm wearing the Eagle Eye one though.
Right, but that same design, like that.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
Like, it's sort of like, to me, that's what the '80s, of the era represent, which also sort of speaks to how not alive I was during that era. But no, I mean, it was a pretty jersey. I mean, I feel like a lot of that has still been inspired. Like you could see that in the one that Ivan is wearing right now. You see traces of its influence on like the triangle. So
the V, yeah.
No,
yeah. Amy, anything on the 80s?
No, I wasn't alive, man. I was like a blip in the air at some point. Like I don't. I got nothing on the 80s at all.
I just feel like I wanted to address them because they are pivotal. We aren't America without the 80s, right? Great players like Cristobal Ortega, just an amazing player overall. You had correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel Brailovsky, right? In that time as well.
Brailovsky was there at that time. Oh,
yeah,
I know.
in the 80s.
I mean, I would
because he was there. He was there in the This is very peculiar. Daniel Brailovsky was there obviously when the big earthquake happened, right? In Mexico City. And he left Mexico after. He's like, nope, I'm not staying here.
We had Antonio Carlos Santos too.
Of course,
Carlos
Santos.
Legend on the pitch. Not so much on Twitter. I think you cannot give that man Wi-Fi. You gave him Wi-Fi, he goes feral on Twitter. He just argues with fans, even with his own fans. So great. But no, I remember.
But does he think that Ochoa should be nominated for Goalkeeper of the Year or not?
I should be.
I already know what Ivan's answer is gonna be. I don't know what it's gonna be.
No, sorry, that was sort of an inside joke with us.
That was a
Twitter beef that I accidentally stumbled into.
Yeah, that was a jab at a certain Colombian.
Twitter beef that I may have started.
You did, Biggie. You started it.
Oh, you did. I saw that tweet because I don't follow him. I saw that tweet because of you.
Same.
So
I thought so I am jumping on.
This dude straight up was like, "Yo, I'm gonna be in LA in 3 weeks," and I was like, "Okay, cool. Meet me in Temecula, bro. Like, you're gonna fight me? Like, okay." Like, I'm not gonna lose my job for this clown.
No, of course.
So.
It's just.
I'll smack him though. But, yeah. Anyway, sorry for diverting the conversation, but and again, going back to this whole idea that this club is so rich in history, I just keep thinking of players that we haven't even talked about. I mean, Sage, for example.
Yeah.
Like Luis Garcia. Like players that were staples in the Mexican national team that were part of America during the 90s. And I think that. Like there's so many great players, that wore that jersey that you can speak on, like
the list goes on. I mean, people, I love it. Absolutely love it when Americanismo Twitter goes on and they start naming their most ideal starting 11, and I'm like, okay, one of you guys, no one put in Alfredo Tena, no one put in Cristobal Ortega. Like no one put in, Reynoso. No one ever puts in Reynoso, like hardly ever. I'm just like mind blown. I'm like, did you guys not YouTube him? All right, see the goal he scored against Boca Juniors. It's ridiculous.
You know what's
I'm just
interesting is that
gonna
even players that aren't like super impactful, like somehow make a very memorable case depending on how they play with America. Like for me, and I was looking this up before we started recording, like Vosso for me is like a memorable America player, and he wasn't even around for that long. Like, I don't know, there's just something about like the marketability of this team. Also, I think that if you're going to compare it obviously to like other popular counterparts, I think what's very interesting about the team, I would argue maybe in present day Leon is probably a little bit more, unless you, or maybe even Tigres in that sense, but there is something very interesting about America's ability to kind of balance out pretty well, depending on who you talk to, this foreign base with national team pride players and kind of just creating a very good team most of the time. I would agree with Miggy. Maybe Tigres in the last decade or so has probably done it better, but there's probably more foreign base for them. But I think America still somehow captivates the national team attention while also showing off their ability to bring in foreign talent and just, continue to be such a top club.
Case in point, Ivan Zamorano, right? He was part of that club, that team that won the 2002 title, and also, there's so many foreign players, and like that's what sort of gets me about the conversation around Águilas versus Chivas, right? Well, Chivas is a Mexican team. It's like, well, yeah, technically you have all Mexicans there, but
there's also a nationalism point there that was made blatantly obvious within the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. So it's, I don't know. It's sure that's your identity. Kudos to you. like I don't want to say it's a gimmick because it's not, but it's. Again, going back to just think how wild it was for two top African players to be playing in Mexico in the 90s. In a lot of ways they were kind of ahead of their times from other clubs. It's
Definitely.
that is so wild to me.
Yeah. No, yeah. You guys all make that great point. I think, like we mentioned, right? There's just so many names. We just talked Cuauhtémoc Blanco for 10 minutes. We could have dedicated that man 3 hours, and we still wouldn't have finished the whole conversation, right? There is, and that's the thing about America. It's 105 years of nothing but amazing history. There's glory embedded in these colors now because of what everyone has done, from Percy Clifford, taking the chance on America, coming from England, all the way to now where we see, America fighting for that 14th title. There is just so much to unpack that it's just the reality of it. It's almost impossible to do it at a certain time frame. But I do want to ask this. I want to go around the room and quickly ask, two things, right? One, who in all the years that, whether you saw them play or you didn't see them play, but to you, who is, for you, your favorite America player? And Christian, AJ, I think you're going to answer that one with Chucho Lopez, but you can't do that for this one. But no, and my second question is, if you had to name a certain moment in the America history in these 105 years that you could only describe to one person as, when they tell you, oh, what moment defines America? I want you guys to pick me one moment that is not the Cruz Azul America Cruz Azul final in 2013, and that is not the America versus Chivas final in the 80s. So I'll throw it to you first, Fidel. Give me your favorite player of all time in an America jersey and that defining moment.
It's not even close. It's not only my favorite player in an America jersey, but in a 3 jersey, in a Chicago Fire jersey, in a Real Valladolid jersey. It's Cuauhtémoc Blanco. I feel like he was just so exciting, and he was very much the Mexican player, and to this day, he's incomparable in terms of character, personality, and all these, and it did to me it did signify the American philosophy, right, of talk your shit, talk a big game, and hopefully you back it up with the goals, and if not, at least you looked really cool doing it.
Yeah.
And in terms of the moment that I would describe, I'm glad you didn't mention the 2002 final, because I'm going to touch on that again, because it really was like 10, 12 years in the making, and it really was just watching my dad watch this team Sunday in and out, and just be frustrated by how good this team was, and they could never really, make it happen. And then it did, and it felt like the floodgates of emotion opened up, and it was like, oh, this is what fandom is like, So that to me is that, especially as a Cowboys fan, I it's the only time I've ever really won anything as rooting for a team that won anything was that team. It was finally sports are validating, this stupid one-way relationship that I have for them.
I see. I know. I like it. Amy, what is your player and defining moment?
I'm gonna do two. Obviously Cuauhtemoc Blanco. I know it's an easy cop-out answer, but it's tried and true, just an amazing player. And then for right now, I would say Raul Jimenez. I think Raul Jimenez was a special player when he was at America. I think he's still a special player now. I think he had a few, we've always said it. He couldn't find his form really in the early parts of Europe, but when you started seeing him over at Wolves and you just seen how he plays, it reminds you of that kid that was at America, and it makes you so happy. So I would say those two. And then I'm going to kind of cheat because I'm not going to mention the 2013 final, but I think for me an important moment for America, and we didn't even get to touch on him, was Piojo Herrera as the manager, just who he was, and that final led him to get the national team job, and then taking a very pro-America team to go do the playoffs against New Zealand. I think that is such a huge moment to understand what America was. It's a little bit of a cop-out because that final, in a sense, influenced that, right? And it's that connection with the national team that we keep going back to about what this team means. But I think that's what it is. It's it's this team that for some reason, for whatever reason, even if they're super good or super bad, means a lot to both club and country. That's why I think it's a very interesting dynamic where I think right now, maybe when it comes to Chivas fans, they kind of go, oh, club over country all the time. And I don't think you can really do that with America as much, depending on who you talk to, depending on the generation. But for me, I think that was a hugely defining moment because that final led to him coming and kind of being this messiah for the national team after struggling time and time again in the qualifiers. And then essentially, doing it with a primarily America squad.
Doing it with that goal, with that chilena by Raul Jimenez,
Wow.
But
that was
also,
epic.
I know that we're not supposed to be talking about that final, but the one thing that we didn't mention, that final gave us one of the greatest Mexican gifts in history of all time. Okay. Seriously.
But you have to understand, it's not even the original gift. It is the Super Saiyan.
Super Saiyan. Right. Yeah. Which is also very Mexican. Dragon Ball Z is Mexican.
I like
Piccolo is a full-blown Mexican uncle just thrown there.
All right, I love it. I love these answers. Miggy, you're up next.
For me, my favorite player of all time was in America jersey is always going to be Cabañas. It's just the time that, he was unfortunate to not be surrounded by a very good team, but could you imagine how good we would be if we had a guy like Cabañas up front right now? He was just a difference maker, man. He was incredible, man. It was unfortunate what happened to him, but yeah, forever that he's going to be my favorite America player. And a moment that defines Americanismo that I would show someone, I think it is an underrated moment too, is the semifinal in the Conca Champions against Herediano, the second leg after we lost the first one 3-0.
Yes.
Because even though the team that we played against maybe wasn't the best, or maybe it wasn't a great team, there's very few teams in the world, I would say, that can come back from a 3-0 the way America did. So I think that's one of the most underrated moments in America's history.
I love it. AJ,
Also,
you look hurt over there.
Gonna quickly interrupt AJ for one quick second because I was actually thinking of this. So this is kind of cheating because I'm looking at the comments, but I wouldn't say he was my favorite player, but I think Germán Villa is also a pretty iconic player for America too. I mean, he's in there. He's in there for sure. I couldn't put him as my favorite because he popped up when you're who are your favorite players, but I wouldn't say he's my favorite player, but he's definitely he's definitely up there. He's
Also,
definitely
how can we forget about Pavel Pardo, who
man.
won the Bundesliga with Stuttgart?
Pavel Pardo for me is number 2 after Cabañas for sure.
Know,
I was actually gonna go with Pavel, but Chava just
There's just
you gotta go with Chava.
Yeah.
All right, AJ. I'm sorry.
Nah, you're good.
AJ, hold up. I want to go with you next, but we're not yet. Just hear me out first, because before I throw it to you, I want to throw it to someone else first. Now, I feel like we've had quite the star-studded panel today, right? We've had Fidel, Miggy, Amy, AJ. I'll throw you in there as well. The reality is, it feels like it definitely has been a Met Gala of sorts, right? The only thing is, you feel like what really would top it all off is a cowboy, right? Just to kind of round up everything here. And to do so, we got our very own cowboy himself, Dylan Jimenez, who is here to share us just a little bit of what the Americanismo means to him, some of his favorite moments, favorite players. So take it away, Dylan.
Wait a minute. This isn't the right jersey. Sorry, guys. Hold on. Well, almost there. Right sport, wrong jersey. Third time's a charm, though, right? Let's try again. And there we go, finally, in my Club America jersey. Just wanted to say thank you all so much for coming on, talking all things Club America, and celebrating the 105th anniversary. I'm going to start by showing one of my favorite goals. I've always talked about the 2013 and the club winning that title against Cruz Azul, but I'm going to change it up a little bit. But this goal right here, when Cecilio Dominguez chipped Zaldivar in that Clásico Capitalino game, it's just engraved in my mind. And just to see Cecilio stare down Zaldivar and just chip him, it's just perfect for me. But here we go. Cecilio!
Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
And now that you've seen the goal, just again, thanks so much, guys, for being here. What it means to be an Americanista is, just, not necessarily being able to be here with y'all, because obviously I'm at work right now, so you're having this video, but just being able to be here, talk to y'all about Club America, be able to talk about the club, being able to have this platform to talk about it and to share the passion, the experiences, especially going to games here in the state, just seeing the Bora and, everybody just having a good time, grand old time in the times that I've been able to cover the team. Just sharing those experiences is what makes me excited to be Americanista. And plus, they have one more than Dallas Cowboys have in a couple of years. So, but different story. But again, thank y'all so much for being on. Shout out to Ivan, helping me start this podcast. Shout out to Christian, AJ, who've helped, carry it along, with us too. But we'll catch y'all on the flip side.
And that is our beloved cowboy himself.
That's one too many cowboy.
I felt that in my bones.
I know. That was cowboy references for me in one.
It's funny because I actually was like wearing a Dallas Cowboys hat. I was like, oh crap, I need to put something really quick. So I switched to a Mexico hat.
I was hoping he
also
would do
Cecilio
karaoke.
Dominguez. So many players.
I miss him.
I know, but I was hoping he'd share a little bit of his angelic voice with us, but had enough time for that. But yeah, thank you to Dylan for putting that together. He was just trying to live up to his idol Fidel right here, so yeah, he was trying to impress.
Man,
Definitely.
Dylan, I love you, man, but you need better idols, homie. Aim higher, homie. Shea Serrano's right there.
So that is another part of the UI podcast and this Americanismo. But AJ, throwing it back to you now, I need to know who is your go-to player and what moment is ingrained as the Americanismo for you.
This is really tough because I'm a young Americanista fan. Like, I started watching this team from 2013 to now. Like, look, throughout the times, like, we've had players come and go. But I feel like, honestly, maybe it's just only my favorite player. I feel like no one else's. It's going to have to be Pipa Benedetto. Every time I remember his first season at America, He was just scoring goals left and right. He was that go-to man that we looked at whenever we needed the goals in this time. And then the one thing I always remember him when, it's my favorite moment. It's a remontada in the Estadio Azteca against Herediano back in 2015. We were down 3-0. I remember watching that first leg, and I was like thinking it's done. And my dad's like, it's not over yet. We have the second leg. And then watching that with a bunch of his Americanista friends at a friend's home. Remember Quintero starting. Oh, I'm just like, okay, we can do something now. He scored the first goal, and from there, Pipa just comes in with 4 goals in the span of 20-something minutes. And at that point, I'm just like, he's our Lord and Savior. This man just made the comeback. And then at that point, I remember just Herediano players look on their face. They're like, we just blew a 3-0 lead in just 25-something minutes. It just happened. And then from there, the rest is history. Just Pepillo Veneto, I feel like Amy touched upon this topic also, how you can get foreign players to be playing in America. And then from there, you have to get them attention and you export them, because right with Pipa, right after, he got his move to Boca Juniors. And from there, he finally got to go to Marseille and get to finally play where he always wanted to be, which is to make his way in Europe. But just, I remember that CONCACAF match and we lifted that trophy as well because of Pipa Benedetto. 7 goals in 3 games in CONCACAF as well. That's incredible. And that's like a guy I feel like I'll never see anyone in CONCACAF or in an America just that could do something like him. Also, just the heads as well. Herediano really let Güero Diaz score out of all people on them. Güero Diaz, I remember that. But no, Pipa Neto, he's always going to be my favorite player, honestly, in an America jersey. He's right there with I would have put Chucha, but I haven't experienced him enough to really say he's my favorite player. But his player jersey I have, definitely I'll always love him for that.
Definitely agreed. Definitely agreed in that sense that he was pivotal for that run in that Champions League. Well, I love it. I loved all you guys' answers. I think they were very much
What's your answer, Ivan?
That's right. Wait, before
everyone
he goes, I'm gonna go with Americanista goalkeeper. So probably Osvaldo Sanchez.
Oh God.
People forget he was in America for a hot second.
Yeah, he was. He was terrible. He was terrible.
Yeah.
Wait, no. I got it. It's Armando Navarrete, right, Ivan? That's your go. That's
the
your
legend. The legend himself. No, of course, everyone already knows my answer, and it's always forever going to be Ochoa. I mean, I can talk about Ochoa for about 4 to 6 hours nonstop.
Ochoa was part of my when you could embed YouTube videos on your MySpace page and videos of Guardado, because I enjoyed him as a player, and of Ochoa, highlights of Ochoa with the techno music in the background.
Exactly, the staple music.
To this day, there are a lot of things that I won't let go of, but soccer related, there are a few things that I will forever, like, I will carry this grudge in my heart until the day that I die, and it's Aguirre benching Ochoa for Conejo Perez, and to me that is just like, I mean, he could have been great at a European club. I remember the rumors he was going to go away, and then Aguirre did him dirty like this. Nah, man. So anyway, I will never let go of that. I will never forgive him for that.
La Volta and Guau, we got beef everywhere, man.
Yeah. that's why I'm club first over country, because the national team's always done my players dirty. But no, yeah, Ochoa's always gonna be my idol for life. I mean, there's an Ochoa poster back there you guys can't see. But yeah, he is forever going to be my player. But for me, the moment that I would show someone would be the most and I feel like America's history is just embedded with remontadas after remontada. But the biggest comeback that I ever witnessed as a kid growing up, the Maracanazo in the Libertadores.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about Salvador Reyes, Chava, you know, what a game he had. I mean, spectacular. And Ochoa too. He balled out. Like, it was in that era where Ochoa and Cabañas were bailing us out. Like, we had Rodrigo Íñigo in defense, okay? Like, that just goes to show you everything. Like, that is, for me, going to be the game. Like, could you imagine what we would have been able to do if Ochoa and Cabañas were playing with, like, more compatible players. Like for example, right now, like it really would have been epic. So for me, it's that.
Yeah, I feel like the year that Cabañas had his accident, I think we were gonna win the ship that year. I feel like we would have, but unfortunate.
Man. I remember. So I was working at a time for this little blog called Wannabe, and it was basically like a Gawker-ish affiliated site. It was for Latinos, and I remember when that happened. You know, we were amongst the first people to publish that image in the US, which, you know, in hindsight is like, oh, that's actually really messed up, you know, but it was like a story that was so big that I remember like Deadspin picked it up, you know, so it was just sort of yeah, that was so wild to me, you know. Yeah, it's yet another of like what could have been, right? It was sort of
Yeah.
which you do get a lot of with America, you know. I mean, obviously it's like we are talking about 105 years and 14 titles. There are a lot of years where there are no titles, you know, and still, I mean, this team is, look, it's the reason why we're all here from, you know, literally 3 states, you know, New York, Texas, and California. It's this stupid club, you know.
And all of the states in between.
I call it a stupid club because it's like, you know.
But is it no disrespect? It's with heartfelt love.
Yeah.
You say that about things you really love.
Yeah, it's my stupid club, you know. So.
I mean, it's the reality of it, right? America is just always going to be America, and it's just the reality of it. So I'm glad you guys all were able to come and share your moments. I don't want to keep you guys any longer. Whilst we could speak on this club for days and hours and weeks, I know we all have other things to do. But I just want to say thank you from the bottom of all of our hearts here at the Eagle Eye Podcast for joining us, guys. And continue to do what you guys are doing, because you guys are killing it, and you guys are representing America in the highest of fashion, not just in the Liga MX English community, but in your everyday life as well. So thank you to all of you guys for putting in the hard work, for doing what you guys are doing. And before we go, I do want to remind everyone that today's episode is brought to you guys by Foot Cult. And if you guys haven't done so already, make sure you guys go check out footcult.com. Miggy can attest to this. Some amazing stuff going on, some amazing gear going to be dropping very, very soon. And for all of that, you guys can get 10% off by using discount code EEP at checkout to get 10% off. Again, that is discount code EEP at checkout to get 10% off. Again, thank you to Foot Cult for sponsoring today's episode. Alrighty then. Any last final words or thoughts before we wrap it up here?
If we were asking questions about like one thing you remember about the A's, I mean, the only thing I really know about the A's was just this jersey that my dad got me of the A's. I remember that. So when he's like the A's, I was like, it's this jersey, right? That's when he's the A's. He's like, yeah, it was like pretty dope jersey. Loved it. Look, that's the same one that I got right here and the one that Miggy's wearing. So if you ever wonder where the inspiration came from, it's from this 1980s Club America jersey. Look at that.
I just love how your closing thought, AJ, is something that when you walked away, legitimately, almost verbatim. I love it. But yeah, it's iconic, man. What can you say about it? You know,
I also failed to say it, and I want to say it before we close it out. Another fantastic moment of America triumphing and doing its thing was America Femenil winning their title against Tigres away.
Oh my god!
In a PK shootout. And we got a legacy that's going to continue on with Femenil. So definitely.
And anytime Monterrey or Tigres fans lose, you know, it makes me really happy. You know, we were talking about generational, right? So like my brother has triplets, and my brother is like it's 2 boys and 1 girl, and like my brother is like a diehard Americanista fan, but my sister-in-law's family are Tigres fans, right? And look, as an uncle, I'm not supposed to say this, but I have a favorite, you know. But unfortunately, that kid is a Tigres fan, so I'm gonna have to reconsider my power rankings, you know.
Yeah, dude. And, power rankings,
you know,
again.
and it's also sad because, like, you know, shout out to moms who had to endure fandom, you know, and it really isn't. It's endurance, you know, like my mom was really heartbroken when she found out that her favorite, which she would never say, but let's be real, that's her favorite. It became an Americanista, and like I remember she was telling me this story when like he was like telling her, like, oh, I'm a Club America fan, you know, as a 5-year-old, And she was so heartbroken. It was like, damn, that's another generation I lost this stupid club. You know? So yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm glad that you
Also,
mentioned that, of course.
to add in on that, America Femenil, let it be known that imagine losing a final at your home stadium to America. We're the only team to ever do that as well. So you could write all you want is like, imagine losing a final at your own home. And plus as well, just America Femenil, just so many memories they brought for me. Lucero Cuevas, Dani Espinosa, Cas Cuevas, just at the very beginning of the Liga Femenil, just scoring goals for fun left and right. I think it was a point where we scored around 50-something goals, I think it was like in the season. We were just scoring goals left and right, and just so many fond memories of this team. And I'm just hoping that, we lift our second title soon enough and we continue to just win titles left and right. So I'm just grateful for being Americanista. I mean, just that be supporting two amazing teams on the Varonil and the Femenil side of things. I'm grateful for it.
I love it. Well, Miggy, any last words?
No, well, just thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it, being out here with everybody. Finally get to talk to Fidel for a little bit. I know we interact a lot on the timeline, but it's nice to meet another 956 bro. And Amelia, as always, it's always cool. And yeah, thank you all for having us, and look forward to doing this again
for 106.
For 106.
We're already planning it. We're planning the drop for 106 already.
There you go. Stay tuned. It's gonna be, as the kids call it, fire.
Pura fuego.
Look, at the end of the day, I just want to say thank you, because for me, the Americanismo is exactly this, what we're doing right now. Talking about the club, being in good company, and really being part of the community, right? I think we've established something in English that I think was well overdue, and I'm glad that we're starting to mix it up a little bit, and I love it, the fact that we're talking not just the men's but the women's side of things too, which is very pivotal going forward, and I love it. I love every second of it. Who would have thought just because of an app we'd be able to do the things that we do today? So thank you to all of you, that are here in today's panel and in the comments section, and to everyone that's listening to this. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for accepting us and for letting us be a part of this awesome and amazing community. So with that said, you guys have a wonderful time. Stay safe out there. We'll be back next week to talk all things Águilas del América, both men and women's as well. And thank you to our great and wonderful guests. You guys can follow them on Twitter. Where is it that you guys can be followed at? Amy, I know you have your handle right there. But Miggy and Fidel, please let us know.
I am at Fidmart85, which is basically the first three letters of my name, the last three letters of my four last letters of my last name, and the year I was born. Yeah, so 19. I'm old. Yeah, I'm an old guy. So, am I the oldest one here? God damn it!
I think you might be.
You might
just
be,
barely.
Just barely. You're still young in spirit.
Yeah, that's not always a good thing. But no, thank you guys so much for having me. Obviously, I'm really, it really brings my heart joy to know that not only is there a community for Club América and like La Liga MX and for El Tri, but it I don't know. I mean, it's this Forsaken app, right? There are some good things about it. I mean, that's how I know all of you, and I feel like really is like I think the big takeaway here is that this fandom is a community, So
it very much is. I love it. Miggy, where can we find you on Twitter?
You can find me at Miggy Stardust. Replace the 2 G's with the number 66. And if that's too complicated, you can just follow Foot Code at Foot Code.
There it is. Make sure you guys all Foot Code for some amazing stuff. All right. With that said, all of you guys, please be safe out there. Wear your mask. Be responsible. We'll be back next week to talk again, like I mentioned, all things Águilas del América. Until then, take care. And as always, arriba la América. Y ya.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was another production of the Eagle Eye Podcast, the #1 source for all things Club America in English. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Eagle Eye Podcast and get all the latest news and coverage. And subscribe to our podcast wherever it is you may listen.